Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Maya Minutes, where we go over tips, tricks, and tools that you can do and learn in Autodesk Maya. Today, we are continuing our series where we go over all of the primitives in Maya and what you can do with them, how you can create them, and what are the different parameters that you can manipulate with them. In the last video, we went over a sphere primitive. So today, we will be going over the next one, which is the cube primitive. I'm going to go ahead and delete this sphere that we have, and I'm going to go ahead and create a cube. Now, again, there are a couple different ways you can do this. The first way is by going up to your polymodeling shelves. You can click on this icon that looks like a cube and create a cube here. You can also create a cube by going to Create, Polygon Primitives Cube, and you can also create it by holding Shift and right click and then pick whipping this cube option here. So as you can see, we've created just a basic cube with the cube shelf tab here. There's not too much to go on with it, but I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to open up the option menu on the cube by double clicking the cube icon in the shelf menu. And here we can see a couple of the different options that we have to work with. The first option that we have is the width option. The width option changes how long the cube works in the x-axis. So if you see this red axis here, the width value changes how long the cube is along that axis. The height option changes how long the cube is along the y-axis. If I hit apply, you can see that it is now longer across this y-axis. I'm going to reset this to 1. And then reset this one to 1 as well. And then finally, the depth value changes the way it works in the z-axis. Hit apply. You can see that all these values change the length of the cube across these three axes here. We also have the width divisions, height divisions, and depth divisions. And these are options that allow us to change the amount of divisions we have on our base cube. So if I go ahead and hit 20 and hit apply, you can see on this new cube that we've created, we have now 20 edge loops, 20 divisions along the Z length that we've had here. We also have the axis orientation. By default, you should just have it set to Y orientation, which just means that your cube will be created with its up value facing the Y direction. If I set it to X, it's now going to be facing the X direction. And if I set it to Z, it'll be facing the Z direction. Now, this is only kind of visible when you have extra divisions along your depth here. If I just set it to 1 and hit apply, you really can't see that much that goes on with it. This is just because this is a cube and it doesn't really have any differing geometry on any of the sides that it has. We also have the UV options here for our cube. These just kind of determine how the UVs are generated on our cube. It'll actually be a little bit easier to explain what's happening if we just look at it in our input tab. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this window and create another cube, and then bring over my UV window over here. Let's size it down a little bit so we can see what's going on. So we go ahead and hit the input tab. Again, all of those different values that we had in our options, the width, height, depth, and the subdivision width, height, and depth are all here that you can manipulate in real time and change to your liking. But we also have this option that we can change with the UVs here. So this Create UVs tab gives you a couple different options. The first one you can do is just click None, and that obviously just disables the creation of UVs on our cube. Most of the time, you really don't want to be doing this, but there are some instances where this might be necessary. The second option is the normalize off. When you click on normalize off, what this does is it doesn't limit the UVs of the cube to stay within one normalized square of your UV space. It's gonna make each face take the maximum amount of space it can for every unit here. This is usually a little bit overkill, and when it comes to doing UVs and textures, you're giving yourself way too much space to kind of utilize efficiently. So this is not an option that you would commonly use. Second option we have is normalize each face separately. What this does is it will keep all the faces the same size as it did with the normalization off option. However, this time it's going to keep them all within one UV boundary here. This allows it a bit more of an efficient space, and if you just have an object that's all the same color or one color, this could be an option that you use. But if you're trying to do different colors on different faces or change the way that the colors work, this is not an option that you're going to be using. The second to last option is normalize collectively. If I go ahead and click, what it's going to do is it's going to normalize all the UVs, as in it'll keep it in within one UV square space, and it will try to give all of them in each individual space where they're not overlapping with each other. I'm not going to be going over too many specifics on UVs in this window, but this allows you to do textures on all the faces here without them overlapping with each other. And the last option that we have is normalize collectively and preserve aspect ratio. This way it keeps all of the UVs the same size and the same aspect ratio here, and it doesn't utilize the entire space of the normalize. It doesn't use the entire space of this normalize function to try and be as efficient as possible. If you are ever going to be changing the values here, you're most likely going to be changing the ways that you change it between normalize collectively and with preserve aspect ratio on. There are different cases where you would use them, but most of the time, by default, it's going to default to normalize collectively with preserve aspect ratio on. All right, so that's all the options that you have when you are creating a cube primitive. In the next video, we'll go over the cylinder.